Hey everyone, right now self-hosting is becoming more and more popular. The idea is simple. Instead of using big corporate platforms, people build home servers for things like cloud photo and video storage, an email server, a media library, smart home control, and more, all running on their own hardware at home. I'm sure many of you have thought about doing this, and honestly, there are a lot of ways to do it. And it mostly depends on what hardware you have. In this video, we'll look at single board server that makes self-hosting easier for anyone who hasn't really dug into this topic before, but wants to quickly and independently set up popular web services at their home network. I'll show you which services I personally use. And today we are reviewing the Zima Board 2 single board server. As usual, we'll take a look inside, go over some use cases for this kind of hardware, and put together a small server setup. If you're interested in this kind of tech and hardware, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. So here's the box this single board server comes in, with this nice looking rubber band, which of course we can use for something. Here's what the box looks like. There's a cut line here. If we cut off this lid, we can use it as a server rack. If you really have no other options, why not? But personally, I'm a bit skeptical about this. I'll explain why in a moment. So here's the device itself, and honestly I think it's absolutely beautiful. It's a solid block of aluminum, very dense, with these ridges for better heat distribution. I really like this design, nothing extra, just metal, ports, and that's it. So this definitely gets a like from me. Everything is held together with a few star-shaped screws. Here it says Zima Board 2 by Icewhale. Icewhale is the company that makes these kinds of server solutions. Here we have SATA ports, SATA power ports, a PCI Express connector on the side, and two Ethernet ports, 2.5 gigabit plus two USB 3 ports, a power port, and a mini display port. Actually, I don't have anything with mini display ports, so it's really convenient that they included a mini display port to HDMI adapter that supports 4K 60Hz, so I can use that to get video output from Zima Board 2. Before I show you what inside, how do you actually use this box lid? You can set it up like this. Basically, you insert one edge diagonally, click it in, and it holds pretty firmly. The idea is that you put 2.5-inch SSDs here. I don't have any right now, I only have a regular laptop HDD. So we take it, put it there, and connect it using a SATA cable. This is really only if you have no other option, because honestly, it's look a bit odd to me. Such a beautiful piece of metal sitting on a cardboard box. But maybe some people would like this setup. There is also one more option. You can go to the official website and find 3D printable server racks designed for this exact device, and they look really cool. And there are different configurations for SSDs or full-size HDDs too. The only issue is that printing it takes a long time. It shows around 26 hours. Of course, I won't be using this cardboard setup, because along with Zima Board 2, they sent me this really nice tiny metal rack. It attached with screws, body to body, right here, and everything sits very firmly. Besides that, there are a few extra parts we'll add to this board. In accessory box, you'll find a power adapter, and it's actually a quick swap system with different plug types. This is pretty convenient. This power adapter is pretty powerful. It connects through this connector here, rated at 60 watts, 12 volts, 5 amp. For only Zima Board 2, we'll need 12 volts 3 amp, but since we are adding some extra hardware, the power draw will naturally go up. A cooling fan for the CPU. The CPU is located roughly around here. If we aim an extra fan at it, it'll cool the whole thing much more effectively. Honestly, with the fan attached, it kind of reminds me of a graphics card. Okay, let's unscrew it. There is some really strong double-sided tape here. And that's it. Looks like a board is free now. Yeah, just as I expected, there is a lot of thermal paste here. Here's this nice solid chunk of cast aluminum. Looks really well made. Here we have LPDDR5 RAM, 16GB chip. Right next to it is the Intel CPU N150. 4 cores, 6MB cache, 3.6 GHz, and just above that the eMMC storage chip, 64GB. Okay, so now that I've shown you all of this, I need to apply new thermal paste and put everything back together. And if we want to assemble this rack, we need to replace these screws with longer ones. They come included with the rack. Once the Zima board is attached, we can install additional hard drives, plus a special mount for PCI Express expansion cards. It looks like this, and it attached with screws that go directly into the drive. Naturally, the SATA ports needed to line up here. These screws are really convenient. You can tighten them by hand or with a screwdriver. If we're going to connect a PCI Express expansion card here, we need to reroute this connector using a patch cable. These little stands go in here and you can screw them in to hold everything together securely. If we wanted to install some kind of expansion, say a dual NVMe slot, it would end up looking something like this. Or if I wanted to, I could install a graphics card here, because a GPU can be used both for running small local LLM models or special models for facial recognition in video surveillance systems, which can be really useful for anyone with a lot of cameras who needs face recognition and similar features. If you want to set up cooling fan from the start, it's better to take care of that right away, so you don't have to open everything up twice, like me. Oh, you know what else I have? This drive here. There's a small cache though. It's a laptop style 2.5-inch drive, so I 3D printed some adapters to let me mount it here. Okay, it's time to connect the cables now. So in the end, here's the build we end up with. And if I also added the NVMe expansion, it would look something like this. But I'm not going to use that board for now. I'll stick with the drives I already have. Alright, so now let's power this microserver monster on and connect it to my router. By the way, these ports are 2.5 gigabit, so you need to use the matching cable. A Cat5 cable won't be able to handle that speed. You need at least Cat6 or Cat7, which has more bandwidth. Of course, it still works with a regular cable. Even a 100 megabyte per second cable with just 4 wires will probably work. But if you want to get the maximum speed, you need a physical interface that supports it. You can see here that this cable is actually Cat7. Pretty thick and dense. Alright, first boot. Let's see what happens. That was really quiet. I think my air conditioner is louder than this whole device right now. Okay, let's get it connected. So after the first boot, you need to find the device's IP address. In my case, it's this. Yours will obviously be different. The best way to find it through your router's web interface, or you can connect a monitor directly to the Zima board too and find the IP address through the command line. So what do we have here? There are a few widgets. At the very top there is a settings menu and also an account menu. We'll create that account the first time we log into the device. It's important to not forget the password because this is the root user, meaning the administrator account with full permissions. If you forget the password, you'll have to fully reinstall the system. If we want to use a command line on remote PC, in the settings menu there's an option called developer mode. If we go in there, here you can enable SSH access. There is also a web terminal, but it's really inconvenient, so I wouldn't really recommend using it. But the whole point of ZimaOS, you don't need to touch the command line at all. Thanks to the App Store. Here you can find a huge number of apps available. These are all web apps. Installing them works just like on a phone App Store. You just hit the install button and that's it. There are a few apps that are a bit more complex to set up, mainly AI assistants, like OpenClaw or Hermes. To use them, you'll need an API key for some LLM model, say DeepSeek, OpenAI or Anthropic Claude. To set up your AI assistant, just follow the step-by-step guide on the Zima Board website. I checked both instructions myself, and everything works exactly as intended. Alright, let me walk you through a couple of server apps that I personally use all the time. Let's start with Navidrom. Navidrom is a music streaming system. What's really convenient here is that you just point it to where your music library is stored, and it automatically sorts everything. Pulls in album art and lets you stream that music to multiple devices on your network at the same time. For this you'll need to use client apps. There are quite a lot of clients available for Android and iOS, both. paid and free ones. The choice is really up to you. The second handy thing is called Plex. Plex does basically the same thing, but for your video files, movies or TV shows you have saved. It pulls in detailed descriptions for actor names and also pulls the ratings for a movie. You can set your own rating too. You can watch your content right from the browser or install Plex client applications on your Android phone or iPhone. You can install it on a projector, on a smart TV. Plex clients are available on pretty much every platform. I also installed ESP Home and Home Assistant. I'm planning to do a detailed video about those systems in September or November. It'll probably run a full hour. Also worth mentioning, there's a backup system here. It lets you backup your data from cloud, from network storage and from USB drives. That can be really convenient for a lot of people too. The next application called ZVM. Here you can add a virtual machine that will have access to in the browser. You can choose Windows 11, Windows 10 or various Linux distributions, but of course you are not limited to just those options. We can attach a link to a system image we want to install and do a custom install. For example, just for fun, I installed Linux Mint 21 here. It boots up really fast, in about a minute. Another handy service is Transmission Torrent Client. It's really handy tool for downloading torrents. Sometimes you have a torrent file you want to download. Instead of leaving your computer running for days because of speed limits, your server can handle it instead, since it's always online. There is a huge number of other services too. A lot of them are tied into AI, meaning you'll need some kind of API key for them. But there are also fun, entertainment-focused services, like retro console emulators. And there are several of those. You can play them right in your browser, from any device. That could be useful for some people too. And honestly, all of these services can be installed on any server. Regardless of the hardware, the only real requirement is that it runs Docker. The main point I want to show here is how convenient ZimaOS makes the whole process. Even someone who never touched a command line can get everything installed in just a couple of clicks. I also wanted to mention the mobile app that comes with it. Through it, we can monitor our server status, check its temperature and load, and also restore web apps. Say your AI assistant glitches out, we can restart it right from the app, no matter where you are. Even in a different city, because the app can access the server even outside your local network. We can also back up photos from our phone. It uploads them to the server in the background, which is also really nice. So, in a summary, the Zima Board 2 is really interesting device with pretty solid specs. I think its build quality looks really nice too. It also gives you an extra services that can be useful both for regular home use and for a small office setup. Also, I really like that the finished build actually looks cool. Instead of hiding it away somewhere out of sight, you can just leave it right on your desk. It's basically silent and it'll definitely catch the eye of anyone who visits you. That's your chance to tell them about the web services you use. Let me know in the comments which one you use. And once again, I'll ask you to subscribe to the channel. This was Arthur from the Hobby Support channel. See you soon in the next video.